The left really likes to talk about privilege, don't they? They always want to talk about white privilege or male privilege, and well, I guess that's the only privilege that they want to talk about, because they don't want to talk about the one and only real privileged group in the United States, and that is liberals. Liberal privilege, which is the laws do not apply to you. You can engage in whatever criminal act you want and never face or suffer the consequences as a result. We've seen Antifa and Black Lives Matter, as they've suffered no consequences for their criminal activities, go from physical assault to arson and now to killing people. And do they ever really suffer any consequences? No. They're allowed to get away with it. In fact, they got the entire left helping them, cover up for them, and bailing them out of jail. Now, this is an escalation of what we have seen from the Democrats over the course of the past 2 decades, where they continually engage in criminal behavior, suffer no consequences, so they get more brazen with their criminal behaviors. We saw back in 2016, Hillary Clinton violates the Espionage Act. The FBI, instead of investigating the crime, engage in a cover-up where they pretend like they're investigating, but they already predetermined the results of the investigation to clear her, because she was expected to win the 2016 election, and it would be nice to have her go into office with a clean slate. Now, during that time, we had found out that the FBI was going through and investigating President Trump as well. Now, with Hillary Clinton, she destroyed evidence. She deleted emails. She went off and destroyed hard drives and mobile devices. Still, no consequences. The FBI targeted Trump with absolutely zero evidence of wrongdoing and kept at it up until the 2018 election, although they shifted it from the FBI to Mueller's team. Now, during that time, what did we find out? Well, text messages from the lead investigator, Peter Strzok, along with Lisa Page, were leaked to the public, where they admitted that there is no there, where they talked about having an insurance policy in case Donald Trump gets elected, where they basically admitted that they were engaged in a farce of an investigation whose sole purpose is to target a political campaign, even though they had nothing with which to justify the investigation. So, learning from that, the Mueller's team, took a page out of Hillary Clinton's playbook and just destroyed all the evidence, especially now that we are engaged into an investigation into Spygate, checking out the origins of the investigation into President Trump, as well as the special counsel investigation. As the Daily Wire reports, dozens of cell phones used by Mueller teams were accidentally wiped before the DOJ could review them. Numerous cell phones from special counsel Robert Mueller's team were accidentally wiped before the Department of Justice Inspector General was able to review the devices, according to newly released government records. The records show at least several dozen phones were wiped of information because of forgotten passwords. So yes, they remembered their passwords, perfectly throughout the entire investigation. But after the Mueller investigation, our special counsel had ended, they suddenly forgot their passwords and entered it in correctly 11 times, setting the phones to be wiped, factory reset, and destruction of all data. We find out that there was irreparable screen damage. Some of them just flat out claimed to have lost their devices, or intentional deletion or other reasons. And of course, they put it in airplane mode so that none of the information from those devices would be backed up into government records. Now, the article continues on and says, for other reasons, and came before the DOJ's Office of Inspector General. They were destroyed before the Office of Inspector General could review the devices. Fox News reported the OIG opened an investigation into possible bias in the origins of the Russia investigation, but determined that the FBI complied with the policies in launching the politically explosive probe. Geez, I wonder why they might have thought there was compliance. Oh yes, because all the evidence to the contrary was destroyed intentionally, right? And we know that the whole complied with policies in launching a politically explosive investigation, that has already been proven false. We know that all they had was a political document paid for by the Democrats and the Hillary Clinton campaign, as the FBI was paying the same person for information that the Democrats were paying for. Now, will any of these people ever suffer the consequences of their criminal actions? Of course not. You saw disgraced FBI director James Comey, who has been proven to have lied to Congress, supervised a phony investigation, engaged in political targeting of a political candidate. And instead of going to jail, what happens? He writes a book, it sells a lot, and he receives hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million+ as he tries to write a book to further the conspiracy that he was trying to promote through an investigation, as he tries to defend his criminal actions. Now we take a look at Peter Strzok. Does he suffer any consequences? Okay, he lost his job, but they engaged in lying to the FISA courts in order to get an illegitimate warrant to spy on a presidential candidate, abused his position in order to target a political candidate with the obvious intention of trying to help out Hillary Clinton. Okay, he loses his job, but now he has a book coming out in which he's likely going to receive a ton of money for it from the left, even though he's already admitted that his book is factually incorrect because he can't remember why the investigation opened, because he has changed his story on it so often. It is really sickening as we go through and we see that the left never suffers any consequences. Not only that, but they seem to get rewarded for their illegal and criminal actions. And considering what they've gotten away with so far in Spygate, and look, I can't tell you anybody is ever going to be brought to justice for it, but considering what they got away with in Spygate, there is no question whatsoever that should a Democrat ever take the White House again, and chances are, yes. Now, whether that's in 90 days after the election, or whether that's 4 years from now or 8 years from now, they're eventually going to retake the White House as the country tends to swing back and forth. As they do, considering what they've already done and suffered no consequences for, there is no doubt that the level of corruption and illegal behavior by the Democrats to abuse the powers of government to target political opponents will be worse than anything we saw under Obama. This is why we need them to be held accountable to their actions. And while President Trump keeps shouting law and order as at BLM and Antifa, he talks about law and order and going after the criminals, we see him doing very little in the way of doing anything against those who were involved in the biggest scandal of American history. Despite that, knowing what we face as a choice between Trump and Biden, there is no doubt that our only option, if we want to continue to have a country, is to vote Donald Trump.